what an effort it takes, right? Get here at the end of a work week. It's getting dark early. It's getting cold. So I really appreciate the traffic is bad out there. So I really appreciate all of you being here tonight. My name is Erin Kimura Walsh. I'm the director of the Lead Scholars Program, which supports first-generation college students on our campus. And I'm excited and really excited that you're joining us tonight for Being First Gen at SCU, a fireside chat with President Sullivan. We are really excited to welcome you to this event to celebrate our National First Generation Week. So thank you for joining us. Before we begin, I'd like to share a land acknowledgement that we offer at the beginning of Santa Clara University programs. We pause to acknowledge that Santa Clara University sits on the land of the Ohlone and the Muwekma Ohlone people who trace their ancestry through the missions Dolores, Santa Clara, and San Jose. We remember their connections to this region and give thanks for the opportunity to live, work, learn, and pray on their traditional homelands. Let us take a moment of silence to pay respect to their elders and to all Ohlone people, past and present. So just a quick note, towards the end of the event, we will have a Q&A, so keep those questions in mind, and we'll pass a mic around. So definitely have some questions ready for us. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator tonight, Giselle Nunez. She's a Santa Clara University first-generation college student alumni, class of 1997, a member of the Santa Clara University Board of Regents, and is currently the Associate Vice President for Strategic Marketing and Communication at San Francisco State University. And she's also an accomplished author. We provided more extensive bios for her and all of our speakers in the program tonight. And so we'll invite you to read those to learn a little more about everyone so we can really focus on the conversation and spend more time talking with each other. So thank you, Giselle. And I'll pass the mic over to you.
Thank you, Erin, and I have a little lapel mic.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that. Look at that. They're all set.
We got fancy tonight.
I know, we are fancy tonight. Let's give Erin and her team from Lead Scholars just a round of applause for putting this together. And probably not just this event. It's been a whole week of events, right, Erin? For First Gen Week?
Yeah.
Not First Gen Month. So. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, thank you so much for being here tonight. Let me just do a quick check on who's here. So who are our students, current students? So raise your hand. All right. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Alums, raise your hand. Alums. Wow. Look at that. Okay. Faculty, staff, raise your hand. All right. Good. Jesuit community members. There's at least one. There we go. Two. There you go. Don't be shy, Father Shola. I want to give a shout out to a fellow Board of Regents, Steve. Say hello. He is just a few weeks old, actually, as a Board of Regent, but he's joined us here tonight. So thank you so much. And then let's see, any alumni board members? Okay, well, maybe they'll be coming late. But thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to share one thought that I have, actually two thoughts, which Haidea just said to me, Haidea. I've been pronouncing that all day, and I just said it wrong. Haidea. Just actually, I was commenting to President Sullivan that this little fireside chat here. I hope you're all warm. So when I was student body president in my senior year, we had this crazy idea to ask Father Locatelli, who was the president at that time, and we're like, why don't we have fireside chats, Father Locatelli, and we'll invite the students to come and meet you and ask questions. So really, it's one of those moments where I just realized, like, wow, 30 years ago, 26 years ago, 27 years ago, here we are. I'm back at a fireside chat with another president. So that's just a nice little moment of, remembering. But one of the things that I wanted to share with you is a quote by St. Ignatius, which drives my personal mission and philosophy. which says, if we're grateful for all that we have been given, then the most natural response is to give back. So really, it's my honor to give back where I can, as much as I can, to Santa Clara. My experience as a first-gen student was transformational. And so to me, being here with you tonight and doing whatever else I can for the SEU community is meaningful, and I'm honored to really be a part of this. So with that said, we're excited to have you here with us tonight. And we want to welcome our speakers as well. I am not going to read all of the bios for our speakers, for our panelists. They're in your program. But I do want to just give you just little introductions, and I just want to just have you hold your applause until the end. But first of all, let's give a warm welcome, though, till the end, to President Sullivan, who most of you know already, but if you don't, our 30th president for Santa Clara University, first woman, first layperson in the university's history, and she's also a first-gen college grad. So we will also be asking her the same questions we ask our students. And we have our 3 current first-gen college students with us. So we have Tisha Hartman, who's a transfer student from West Valley College, and that's in Saratoga, if you don't know. Then Jacob Mejia is a finance major from the class of 24, and he just got back from New York, actually, from an internship. So we're at Goldman Sachs, exactly. So fancy. And he landed on Saturday. He landed on Saturday and had to start his new job on Monday, and that was his first time in New York. So imagine that.
Yep.
And Haidia Weisinger is a psychology and public health major from the class of 25. So let's give them all a round of applause, please. So we will ask everybody the first question, and then we're going to take turns on some other questions in the middle, but we're going to end with some fun lightning round questions as well after we give you some time to do some Q&A. So start thinking of your questions as well. So we do want some audience participation. So first question, we're going to start on this side. Share a little bit about your experience as a first-gen college student, Haidia.
Yeah, great question. So before I can share that, I want to just share a little bit about my background and who I am. So as the introduction says, my name is Haidia. I'm from El Sobrante, California, which is a little town in the East Bay area, right next door to Richmond, California. And yeah, I heard some woos. And I'm majoring in psychology and public health and minoring in religious studies and political science. And growing up, I was raised by a single mother. My father passed away from cancer when I was 6 years old. So really raised by a really strong matriarch, like my mom, my aunt, my grandmother, all my life. And they really pushed and pursued really wanted me to pursue education, and really talked about why it was so high, why it was so important that education can really take you anywhere. So going into high school, I knew I wanted to go to college. I didn't know where to start. I went to a little all-girls school called Holy Names in Oakland. And so I worked really, really hard. And then I knew once I graduated high school, I had the capabilities. I felt like I had a well-rounded education. But then when it came to college and, applying to the college process, it was, do I have the skills, the capabilities? Where do I go from here? I got all the necessary parts, now what? And so kind of coming to Santa Clara, what I really loved about it was that it had the Lead Scholars Program. And that was something I didn't see across any schools that I applied to, and I applied to 17 schools. And so Santa Clara was the only school that had a formalized program for first-generation college students, and had something where it was structured, where you get mentorship, you are encouraged to pursue academic excellence, and it gives you this great social community that really pushes you to finish college. And so I think as a first-generation college student, definitely starting that first year, I felt like I was thrown into the deep end. There was so much to pursue in terms of academics. There was so much to get involved with in terms of clubs and organizations. But definitely, I would say my journey as a first-generation college student would not have been possible with the Lead Scholars Program and with that supportive mentorship community behind me. So,
love that. Thank you, Haidia. And I'm just going to also say that the operation budget for Lead Scholars is 80%. It comes from 80% of contributions. So I'm putting it out there because I'm going to bring it back again in the closing. So just wanted to say that. So President Sullivan, so what was your college experience like at the University of Florida, right? As a first-gen student?
Well, my college experience was very different than what you're going to hear tonight.
First, it was a long time ago, but I didn't even know the word first gen when I went to college. I didn't know that was even a term. But when I was in 6th grade, my family moved from Jacksonville, Florida, to a very small town called Live Oak, Florida, about 10,000 people. And so that's where I went to high school. I finished high school after 11th grade because it was not a college prep high school there. And so I had taken all the courses. So they said, you've graduated. So I made really good grades, but I really wasn't sure what to do. So I went to University of Florida. It was an hour away. It was a public school. It was the best public school in the state by far at that time. And it was affordable. The Rotary Club in Live Oak, Florida gave me a $5,000 scholarship, which went a long way at that time. And my father owned a car dealership in this small town where I lived. And so my father traded he gave a used truck to a customer in exchange for a used mobile home. He moved the used mobile home to Gainesville, Florida, and told me that's where I was going to live while I went to college. And when my brother followed me 2 years later, he'd lived there with me too. But in the meantime, I could find a roommate. So I went to college. Needless to say, you're in a large public university. I'm young. I don't live on campus. I live in a mobile home park with families. There are no college students there. And I don't think there was a lead program, but I would have had no idea, even if there was. And so it was challenging because there were no mentors. I did not have an advisor, even. So I didn't know how to select a major. I didn't know who to turn to if there was a personal challenge in my life. And I'm just really glad that our students here are experiencing something different because I know how valuable it is.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. That's definitely something to experience. Like, here's your home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Figure it out, right?
Figure it out. The whole thing was just figure it out. I asked my father what I should major, and he said, I really don't care as long as you have a job at the end. So that was the extent of the advice I got in college.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Jacob, what's your experience been like as a first gen?
Yeah, so I grew up in a family of 4. My brother is 8 years older than me. He actually went to college, but he went to college at a very different time in the mid-2010s, and I started at the very beginning of the pandemic. I grew up actually right next to IDEA, also in the East Bay in Pinole, California. So coming into college, I didn't necessarily know what it is that I wanted to do exactly. I think there's so many different options, so many different opportunities, and I think you're just kind of hit with all of it at once. Especially when you get like a lot of emails on a daily basis talking about these different opportunities, different internships, different programs, et cetera, et cetera. And so being a business student, right, I kind of narrowed my focus into finance. But from there, I ultimately had a mentor in the lead program, through the lead program, who actually helped me out a lot. And so he was kind of like the person whose footsteps I want to follow, who ultimately I did follow. And I think my experience as a first-gen student has largely been tailored around the mentorship, the community that you build, and ultimately just learning from others who have gone through the exact same things. Because again, I'm going to say it a few times, you don't know what you don't know. And so finding him as a mentor was definitely the thing that changed sort of my college career, and definitely the trajectory of my life, I would say. So.
Wow. Well, thank you to that mentor.
Definitely.
So, Tisha, what's your experience been like?
Well, as you may have gathered from my age, I'm an older student, so my path to college is very non-traditional. I was born in LA to a family that was very poor. I grew up in East Los Angeles in a neighborhood of Compton and moved all around as we grew up. I am the first person in my family who has a high school diploma. And I'm also going to be the first member in the family to go to college, and with any luck, the first one to become a doctor.
No luck. Put it out there.
So as you can imagine, running away and getting a GED meant that life at home wasn't great. And so I was a foster care child. In fact, I was at the Catesel House, which is a group home just across the street on Lafayette. So I used to watch the Santa Clara students come and go and think about how cool it would be to be able to go to college. So it's a real blessing to be here. And I think the journey for me has been daunting. I'm coming in with a ton of education gaps, having gone out and really only finished middle school before I endeavored on taking on college. It's been a journey. So I'm sitting in science classes in the quarter system and really kind of drinking education in from a fire hose. But it's been fun, it's been humbling, and it's definitely a transformation.
So since you're warmed up, Tisha, let's ask you the second question,
Sure.
which I think maybe related to this first answer as well, is what are some of the challenges you have met, and so what are some of the challenges you've experienced, and how have you met them?
Well, I think with all first-gen students, finance is obviously a consideration. Secondly, I think for me what is unique is the
gonna put
lack
your
of
mic up.
community.
Wait, I think, yeah, I don't think it's on. There you go.
Thank you.
There you go.
The lack of community. Being an older student on class, in the campus, I'm typically the oldest one in my class, sometimes, many times, often older than my professors. So that makes for a very isolating journey. But truly the biggest challenge is really overcoming those educational gaps, the knowledge gaps. And a big part of why LEAD is tremendous in that is there's some opportunity for us to attend some lead classes that are specific to first gen, so they understand the unique journey that we go through, how much more we're carrying outside of school, the work, the family obligations, the things that some of our peers aren't having to juggle that we have to face. And so those classes are tremendous, and we'll talk about what I think about that more. But yeah, I think that's the big one.
Okay. Jacob.
Yeah, for me, I would definitely say it has to be career and professionalism. I didn't grow up in an area or in an environment where people went to the corporate world, or people had to act in a certain way or dress in a certain way or anything like that. I mean, the East Bay, I would say, is the furthest thing from Wall Street. And so it was, and so obviously for me, it was like coming to college and learning, I had to dress business casual. I honestly didn't even know what that meant, right? I didn't know how to tie a tie. I didn't know how to do all these little things. And along with like networking and communicating yourself, right? Because I think all of us can speak to like that is the most important thing in the business world and just like in general. And so for me, it was just learning how to carry myself in that environment, learning how to be in that environment, and learning how to ultimately propel myself forward. And again, it comes back to mentors, it comes back to people who teach you these things, who also had to learn it. Because again, I didn't have parents, I do have parents. I didn't have parents who went through, who entered into the corporate world and who did sort of all the business and professionalism things, so.
Wow. So President Sullivan, so what was one challenge that you met in college, and how did you solve that particular challenge or overcome it?
I think, it was difficult for me even to determine what to study. And I entered as pre-med because I thought people with good grades became doctors. That was the only reason. And but after 2 years of chemistry and zoology and physics and all of this, and all of the labs that went with it, I'm in organic chemistry, and I'm thinking, I hate these labs. I am not good with my hands. I can't even sew a button on. How would I ever be a physician? So I said, I really need to change my major. And I'm like, well, what? And I knew I was quantitative, so I went and took some stat classes, some actuarial science classes. I thought, this is so boring. And so, sorry for anybody that does that. but it just didn't turn me on. And my family had always been kind of small business owners. So I said, well, I'll go to the business school, and started in accounting. And I liked that because I wasn't just doing something that had some quantitative or logic to it. I felt like I was trying to describe an actual business enterprise. And there was something more interesting than that. And so I ended up there. But it was just by random luck and taking different classes.
Wow. Well, I remember I didn't do well in chemistry. So what's been one challenge you've met, Haidia, and how did you find a solution for it, or how did you overcome it?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say one of the biggest challenges I met was definitely imposter syndrome. I think coming into college, it's so interesting and beautiful because you meet so many different people. They're not only coming from so many different parts of like the United States, like if in the context of Santa Clara, but they're also coming from all over the world. So you go into a class and it's very easy in high school. A lot of people, it's very concentrated, nearby cities, some people you grow up with. So it's very easy. Everybody's on the same educational track. Everybody knows the same thing. So it's very easy to say, okay, I know who I am as a student in this context when you're in high school. And then you go to college and there's so many different paths of education people had. And I remember one of the first classes I entered and the professor was like, okay, it's time for you to have a class discussion. And people I was working with, it was a psychology class, I thought they were psychologists the way they just knew everything. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. Is this the major for me? Am I in the right place? And so I think it took a lot of soul searching and working with my lead mentors to say, oh my gosh, like every day I was like, I don't know if I'm in the right major. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Should I go undeclared? What should I do? And I think even seeing people who were older students be so involved in so much on campus really inspired me and made me realize I worked so hard to get here. I do deserve that seat at the table. I do deserve to be in the classrooms that I'm in. I do deserve to be in the spaces I want to be in and excel in those spaces. So I think even now being involved, you know, I'm the president of the Black Student Union this year. I'm involved in the Markula Center doing applied ethics on campus and doing so many just student assistant jobs and just being able to meet so many different people and hopefully be an inspiration for others as other mentors were an inspiration for me is just so just life-giving. So I think definitely remembering that everyone, especially as first-gen college students, deserve a place here has definitely helped me overcome imposter syndrome.
If you want to get a hold of her, call her executive assistant. If you don't have one, I think you need one. Wow, no, and that's, I think, the concept of imposter syndrome, I think, is something that a lot of us deal with, whether it's in college, whether it's after college. So there may be different phases where we have to, you know, where we have to deal with that. Sounds like a workshop on that, Erin. So there you go, another workshop then. Yes, exactly. Well, let's do a little popcorn here for the next question. And this question is actually related to what staff and faculty can do to help support the first gen experience. So, Jacob, what can staff and faculty do more of? Because I know that staff and faculty try, and they're doing a lot of good work already to support our students overall. But what is there something more? Is there one thing that you think that that they can perhaps do to make it even more inclusive for first gen students?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, at least in my experience, has been when faculty and staff take the time to really know their students, nurture those relationships, and kind of foster them outside of the classroom, right? I think the best relationships that I have with professors are the ones where I can go up to before class, we can talk about our days, talk about hobbies, et cetera, and then from there we can go up after class and then discuss things in office hours that are also kind of more personable. And so again, I think it's just like when a professor is able to in a class talk about their family, their life, and whatnot, I think ultimately it just connects us closer to them, and I think it just makes me and feel more vulnerable. And I think in that sense, it's just about nurturing the relationship that's not student to professor, but more of just like friend to friend, I guess.
Yes.
But again, it's just in the sense of nurturing that personable, close relationship.
So just personalizing it just a little bit more, which takes a little bit more time. It takes a little more thoughtfulness.
Definitely.
So President Sullivan, so what would you think could be one or two things that?
Well, I certainly agree with what Jacob said, but I would say the worst experience I ever had with a faculty member in college, but would never happen here, is I had a reputation of, I now was majoring in accounting, of making good grades in that particular major. And I did not do well on a test, but I had just found out my parents were getting divorced and things were just really an upheaval in my life, and there was no one to talk to. And so I went to get my test, and this professor said to me, you know, I really think maybe you might just have a fat cat attitude. And I said, really? I said, you know, I have a lot of problems, but that's not one of them. And I turned around and walked out. And it really kind of taught me a little bit of, I have to stand up. I mean, and you just have to say, you know, like I have a lot of problems, but that's not one of them, and walked out. But I think what faculty can do is be sensitive when students do have changes in their life, because changes happen while you're in college, and they do impact, you know, how your performance and what you can do. So if you're getting to know your students, like Jacob said, just be sensitive to when they might be struggling and reach out.
Wow, okay. All right. Maybe staff and faculty, so when we have the Q&A, you can share some of the things you do to make the experience a little bit more inclusive. So this next question is for President Sullivan, and you've answered this question, I think you answered this question, I think, on a daily basis, but let's do it one more time for this audience. So you've shared plans to create a more diverse and inclusive Santa Clara. Can you describe how first-gen college students are included in that vision?
Well, they're central to that vision. I think having more first-generation college students is very important to me for many reasons. Obviously, I identify with those needs, and I think that we meet those needs very well here. I mean, we can always improve, and we should always be striving to improve. But I see this as a place where a first-generation student can really thrive and really realize their full potential. And because my whole career is about education, for me, education is hope. But I also believe as educators and as a leader of a school like Santa Clara with our values, particularly our Jesuit values, that we have a responsibility to contribute to social mobility in our country. And we also have a responsibility to contribute to strengthening the democracy in our country. And I believe it is education that is the key to both of those things. And so for me, it's really important that first generation students are going to get that education with the support systems that are required to really realize their full potential, because our country needs them. We need every one of them. So that's why it's important to me.
Excellent. Well, and I can attest from our meetings at with the Board of Regents, where the president speaks, and also her team shares with us all of the different things and different ways that they're trying to build an infrastructure to support first gen. Really, again, all students, but for this conversation, first gen students in particular as well. Our next question is to the alumni in the house. And the question, so we're going to start with Jacob this time here. What role can alumni play in supporting first gen students?
Yeah, I think I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. I think it's networking with younger students. I think that's the most important thing, sharing your experiences as a first-gen student in college, and then how you navigated your way out of college. Maybe that's into grad school, maybe that's into the professional world in a certain field or industry, et cetera. And I think just when you're a student, like you're in my shoes as a freshman, sophomore, junior, and you see someone who's older, who has done it, who has gone through it, who has a similar background to you, I think that gives you hope, that gives you inspiration, but also gives you sort of a path that you can visually see, right? And I think that's the most important thing, is when you can see someone who went through the exact same things as you in a place where you want to be 5-10 years down the road. I think that that's really powerful. And so again, I think it's just networking, giving back, coming to events that we have on campus, whether it be through different organizations, whether it be through LEAD. And I think, if you are an expert in a particular field or in a particular industry, speaking to freshmen, you never know that could very well determine that freshman's path through college and beyond. And so I think it's just giving back and networking and sort of sharing your experiences.
Which reminds me, I just got a email from a marketing student and through the Bronco Exchange. Yep. So do you use the Bronco Exchange at all as students?
Yep.
Okay. Are any of the alumni here on Bronco Exchange? All right. Okay. We need to see more hands. So I don't know how we can get this info out to our alumni here, but yeah. So you just reminded me that I have to get back to her. So thank you for that. What do you think alumni can do to help?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to really echo Jacob's point. I think it's so powerful and heartwarming, even in this sense, in this space, seeing so many alums come back from so many different years and be able to provide so much insight of how college was back in back in their day, if they're, you know, a little older, or even like how recently, like things they want to
Back
see.
in the day. No, I heard that. I heard that.
Or even if they're a little more recent grads, you know, kind of continuing that kind of dream and vision. Because I think it's so powerful when, you know, you do have that alumni network, and, you know, having platforms like Bronco Exchange to be able to say, hey, I did it. Because I think no matter what institution you go to, college is hard. You know, there's so many different emotions. There's so many things that are happening. Even like President Sullivan said, there's so many emotions. There's so many changes that can happen at home. And so I think seeing people, you know, encourage you to continue to push forward, seeing people who serve as your light at the end of the tunnel is so, so important, and say, you know, if they were able to do it, if they were in my path or in a similar path, I know that I'll be able to do it. And I think even in the job world or the career world, being able to connect with past alums, especially when they're first gen, and being able to see them in a space, or, you know, if you go on to work at that same company, knowing you have someone who can show you the ropes, knowing you have someone who can encourage you and tell you, you know, you got this, here are all the tips and tricks you need to know. I think that's so powerful. And so I think just that connection and coming back again, like Jacob said, and having that, you know, again, sense of mentorship, not just while you're in your 4 years of college, but beyond that, is so, so important.
So,
And I think, Jacob, you had something like that at Goldman Sachs.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Your
I did.
internship.
I was actually going to add that.
Yeah.
So my first day at Goldman this past summer, there was a vice president in the real estate, like, investment banking group. He emailed my work email the first day. I opened up my work email, and I see an email from him that says, hey, congratulations on making it, would love to grab coffee sometimes, right? And like that means a lot, especially him being an alumni of Santa Clara, and like him reaching out to me within like the first few hours, right? When I'm like in complete shock and just like in this new environment, right? And, you know, ultimately, I think we grabbed coffee like 4 or 5 times during that summer. And it was just a great connection that I had. And it wasn't one thing where it was, you know, we were networking a network. It was, he really wanted to see me succeed. And so he ultimately opened up, you know, everything about how to work as a junior, how to go about the environment, how to go about talking to older professionals and whatnot. So again, that was a key example of it. It's just like, it was great to see someone who had been at Santa Clara, who had gone through the undergrad here, was now succeeding in a different role. So.
I love that. And just a plug for Bronco Exchange, because I didn't explain what that was. It's the LinkedIn for the Santa Clara community. So basically students are on it, and then as alums, we can sign up as well. And it's pretty simple because your LinkedIn profile can connect to the Bronco Exchange like that. And then students, then you tell the system, you know, who it is and what it is that you do and what kind of folks you want to be connected to, and then students then reach out to you for conversations on just mentorship, really. So like this one student who's a marketing student was just looking to speak to other marketing professionals. And so somebody remind me, I gotta do that tonight. So Bronco Exchange, a plug for that. Next question is to everybody, actually. Gosh, we are getting to the end of our questions. Whoa, so get ready for your Q&A, everybody, please. This has to be interactive. This can't just be like us talking here. So, okay, so based on your experience and everything that you've shared, how do you plan to pay it forward as you're looking at graduation here?
Yeah, I can go ahead and start us
Let's go
off.
with you, Haidia.
I think definitely it's practicing what I'm preaching. So, you know, I'm talking about how alums can come back and give back. And I think definitely as I'm thinking of graduation and thinking of my next steps, I definitely want to give back to the LEAD community for sure. I think definitely having the opportunity to participate in LEAD Week and be able to start that mentorship and build connections with LEAD students while I'm still at SU, and be able to provide, you know, if it's just help with class registration, or, you know, what's the best places to eat around campus, or anything of that sort. You know, those connections are so important. I want to continue that even when I graduate, you know, like the story Jacob was telling, to be that someone to reach out to a first generation college student, to be that someone people can rely on once they graduate. And, you know, I just need help with career advice. I just need help with school advice. I need help with life advice. To be that someone for someone, I think is so important. So I think definitely after graduation, to still be connected to the Santa Clara community, to still be connected to the LEAD community, is something I definitely am going to strive for, and definitely something I'm going to do.
Excellent, excellent. Jacob.
Yeah, so I'm graduating in March, so I'll be done here in a few months, which is exciting, but obviously sad at the same time. And so I think I'm going to echo exactly what Haidia says. I think the way that I've at least been paying back here my time in college and also like outside of college is just through mentoring. It's just through helping the students, and I think class registration is one part of it, but I think again helping them learn about what it is they want to do. The world is very competitive now, particularly with internships, opportunities, and business careers and whatnot. And so just trying to get them on the right track as early as possible, as far as freshman year, sophomore year, exploring different fields, exploring different opportunities, and kind of going from there, right? And then showing them the ropes of recruitment, of behavioral interviews, of things like that. These are things, details that are necessary to know, particularly when you're trying to become professional. And I think, again, if you don't have someone who's kind of in your ear telling you about these little tricks of the trade, I guess, you'll never really figure it out. And so I think just giving back to students, freshmen, sophomores now through a variety of organizations is definitely the way that I'm doing it. So,
Excellent. Tisha.
Yeah, I think paying it forward is something that, I think we all strive to do in the moment as well, not something that's just a long-term goal. Long-term, ideally, I'd like to be able to create scholarships for foster kids coming out, first generation, who really had to overcome a lot to get to college. So that's a personal goal. I'd also like to create internships when I have my practice one day and pull
Love
students
that.
in.
When you
who are
have your
first
practice.
gen.
Yay.
Yes.
Yes.
My practice.
Yes.
But it's also about the moments here and now on the campus, too. I find a student who is struggling to get through the day, and I know that I have some resilient skills that they don't have. That's a gift of my age and my wisdom. And so I lean into that, and I help them out with that moment, get them connected with CAPS. Or, if somebody's struggling, I'll get them connected with the study group. So it's in the moment as much as it is in the pay it forward, too. But yes, definitely really want to lean into some scholarships for first gens.
Love that. So President Sullivan, not necessarily asking you how they can pay it forward, but what are maybe 3 things that you would like to leave with our students, either in the audience or with our panel, in terms of what they can think about as they graduate and how they can continue to grow, evolve?
Well,
3 nuggets of wisdom.
Well, I don't know if there'll be 3, but I had a person come to my office today. I was having open office hours, and he was not quite about to graduate. He's 20. And he told me about he had been majoring in finance and math. Now he's going to major in math, but he doesn't really know what he wants to do. And he said, how do I figure it out? And so I said, you know what? You don't need to figure it out. And so then we sat and talked for about 20, 30 minutes of, he's got a whole life in front of him. The main thing he needs to do is just always put him in himself in situations where he can learn and grow, where he can expand the connections of people, the types of people he's interacting with. He can learn from their experiences, and it doesn't matter where you start, because you're never going to end up there anyway. And I kept telling him, God has a better imagination than you do, so why should you figure it out? Let him figure it out. And just make sure that you're learning and growing, and you're having times of reflection where you can feel where you're being nudged to go and where you're being guided to go.
I love that.
That's
definitely great
Too many
advice.
people feel like they have to figure it out, and they have to figure it out now.
Right.
I still haven't figured it out. That's okay. That would mean I've stopped learning and growing.
That's right. That's great. And stillness, growth comes in stillness.
That's right.
In times of stillness. So find stillness, right? To reflect, to give yourself time to think about, to ground yourself, so that you can get out of your head as well. Part of that imposter syndrome as well, right? So, okay, well, we've come. It's that time for the Q&A. So, do we have our mics ready?
That I know I struggle, and I'm sure some other first generation students struggle with, is the need to constantly be overworking or doing the best you can to reach these goals, which oftentimes leads to overwork. It leads to burnout. What are some ways, if you've struggled with this, what are some ways to kind of combat this feeling of constantly needing to do more, constantly needing to work harder and make up for that imposter syndrome? What are some tips you have to combat that, or if you struggle with your story?
That's a great question. Tisha?
I can tell you I relate to that a lot. I feel like coming from a background where there's an inherent sense of unworth, that my whole life I felt like I had to try harder and prove myself, and I don't know that that's ever gone away for me. I don't know that I have a solution for you. I think I try to be aware of it, and I try to see it when it bubbles up and say, you know, am I doing this for that reason, or am I doing this because it's something that I truly want to do? So I think bringing awareness to it and understanding that we have this habit and that it's coming from a place of maybe an unhealthy, you know, a lack of self-love, and just kind of, you know, maybe not forcing it away because it's a part of us and it's something we have to learn to carry, but just accepting that and going, okay, I can change. I can do something different in this moment. I see it now. But truth be told, it's something I think we will always battle if that's within us.
So does anybody else want to answer that?
I'll give it from another perspective. I grew up being a perfectionist, which is very unhealthy. In fact, when I was in 8th grade, my guidance counselor called my mother and asked her to come in. And my mother came home and said to me, "What in the world does your guidance counselor want to talk to me about? I mean, what's happened?" I said, "I have no idea, none whatsoever." And so my mother went, and the guidance counselor said, "We're really worried about her because she's such a perfectionist. She always has to do everything just right." And my mother said, "Well, that's just how she is. She'll grow out of it one day." And so she came home and she told me the same thing. And so she kind of just said, "No, you'll grow out of it one day." Well, it takes a while to grow out of that. And you finally do when you decide that that's not the measure of your self-worth, and that God loves you and you love yourself no matter what. And that's not the measuring stick of the purpose of your life. But that takes some years, particularly if it's kind of ingrained in you.
So be patient and kind to yourself.
Yeah.
And have an accountability buddy. So when you get to that, so when you feel like you're spinning, you have someone to remind you, right? And to share those words that you're hearing tonight as well. That's a great question. Another question?
Yes. Would you like to comment? Hi, I'm Karen. I work here. I'm a staff member, but I'm also a mom to a sophomore. And similar to the question about what staff and faculty could do for our first-gen community, we often talk about the Bronco family and how, you know, parents and extended family feel so much a part of this community. And I'm wondering what we could do specifically for your families that would help them feel closer to our community. You know, they're not always going to be moms and dads. They might be kids or partners. So I don't know if you have any ideas about that.
I think I could start on this one. So I came into college during the pandemic, so it was a very weird transition, right? It wasn't like the classic, like, oh, drop off, bye, have fun, love you. It was like I was at home doing the chores with them, working, right, at the same time. And so, you know, it's been a bit of a disconnect, I would say, but I think the way that you kind of remedy that is just through different events, right? Like they came to Family Weekend last year. And they had a great time. That was like one of the first times on campus. They were like so excited and like they felt like I was a freshman again. And so I think just continuing to kind of have those events, have those spaces where I can forward an email to my mom and say, hey, look, this thing is going on this weekend, and like they can drive up here and kind of go to that. And I think that kind of helps encourage them. And also like them seeing like talks like this or kind of like other events on campus. I think those are also good ways to sort of incorporate the families, because I think they want to know what we're doing here on a day-to-day basis. And I think just like you know, seeing them, or at least having them come to these events, come to these meetings, come to these kind of larger sort of university sponsored things are definitely a great way.
Yeah, and I would add into, I think just any type of like personalized kind of information. I know personally for the Markula Center, they sent my mom an email and they were like, we're so happy to work with your student. And my mom was like, oh my gosh, they reached out to me. You're doing all this. I'm so proud. And I think even also,
I love it. Yeah.
Even also, I think something that I really love is that LEAD sends out like little care packages to families. And so like definitely like around the holidays, my mom was like, I got my LEAD Christmas present. I got my postcard. So it really makes her feel included, because I think definitely when, you know, there's so much craziness just happening with college, from academics to extracurriculars. And so if there's like 1,000 things that, I'm doing, and, I'm like, oh yeah, I just had a good day. And, and then she finds out all this other stuff, and then the university's including her, I think that helps her feel included, makes her feel, close, like Santa Clara's right in her backyard. So.
Wow. I didn't know that those little packages were sent out. That's a nice touch. Wow. And that's why they need contributions. Operating budget. I just want to say that again. So, Atisha, do you have a?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about it from the perspective of what I've heard other first-gen students say, and I know that a lot of them, they're getting pressure from their families to work, right? Yeah. They don't see a value in education because they haven't had it, and they have no role models who had it within the entire network of the family. And so for them, it's like, well, why are you going to school when you could be making money? And so I think the conversations that we can have as a community and as family members, supporting other family members, is really helping them understand the benefit of it that might not be immediate, that might not really bring dollars and cents to the family right now, but in the bigger picture is going to change what's possible for the family. And I think that's really where it needs to, one of the things I've seen and noticed.
Thank you. So that's a great question. Other questions?
Yes. Martel, class of 2013.
All right.
Newly on the SC, or on the lead advisory board.
All right.
One of the questions I have is, what's the best way to understand some of the physical resources that students need in terms of laptops, phones, things from dorm rooms, rest halls, anything of that, where we can kind of understand as far as alum or people in the broader community how we can help out.
So who wants to take that one?
I mean, I could start us off. Food insecurity is a real thing, and I know that Santa Clara is a wealthier demographic, but it exists on campus. I can tell you that a vast majority of the network that I associate with leverages the food pantry, so believe it or not, small things being donated make a big difference in a student's life who can't afford the groceries, especially when you think about the cost of the groceries and the jobs that we get on campus and how low paying they are. So food insecurity is a big one. Right? And then you mentioned technology, and I think that's something that we all battle with. I know that, computers are expensive, and it's something we absolutely have. It's mission critical, really, to get where we're going. So those are two really great points to start with. I think if we were going to talk about dorms and residence halls, it'd be great to tie that into sustainability and how can we make those solutions work and make them environmentally friendly. In other words, let's not just buy furniture and then have it be in a dumpster at the end of the quarter. Let's make a way for that to be something that's continually reused so that we create a better future too.
I was just going to mention real quick, there was a presentation earlier this week on the basic needs survey. So how many of our students are experiencing food insecurity, housing insecurity. About 30% of our students have said they have some level of food insecurity, where they are not able to get access to the food when they need it, are limited in what they can buy when they go to the grocery store and have to make decisions, when they're, and not able to buy all the things that they need. So it's about 30% of our students that have a level of food insecurity right now on our campus. Thank you for bringing that up, Keisha.
Any other answers or thoughts, President Sullivan?
Well, I think the best ideas have been shared. Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, I think we have time for maybe two questions.
Does anybody else? Yes, Carla. Hi everyone, my name is Carla. I'm a senior at Ethnic Studies and Women's and the Urban Ed and Social minor. And I'm a first gen. And I have a quick question. I wrote it down so I don't forget.
Excellent.
But I'm really focused and interested in learning about institutional change and what Santa Clara can do. So I have a question that says, how is Santa Clara supporting first gen students and guiding them to success outside of the LEAD Scholar program? And how are you actively centering first generation student experiences, voices, and opinions without imposing uncompensated social, emotional, and physical labor to them? Thank you.
I think that may be a question for, I don't know, maybe President Sullivan, but maybe staff. Erin, I don't know.
Yeah,
There's
no,
something-
so there were a couple layers there. One is
Yeah.
how are we addressing kind of first generation college students and their needs beyond the Lead Scholars Program? Did I hear that right,
Yes.
Carla?
Yeah.
And the other question is, how are we centering and getting, bringing in the voices of first gen students, but also kind of not, bringing them in without compensating them for their time, for their efforts, for their work? Is that kind of what the questions you were asking? I think one of the challenges, and just to kind of give some context, is that many times I think our students, our BIPOC students, our first gen students, our underrepresented students are called upon to be on different committees, be on different panels, be on search committees, come and do, panels for prospective students, high school students, come outreach, about Santa Clara in the community, and they don't necessarily get paid for these opportunities. They are compensated for these opportunities. It's because kind of they're being asked to do this out of their kindness of the heart, but really are also, as you can tell, stretched by other demands that they have in their lives. So I think that's kind of what Carla was asking. Is that right, Carla? Yeah.
I have a picture of the question. I'm going to hand it to President Sullivan and see if maybe we can get a response.
Yeah. So
Go ahead, Aaron, I'm listening.
explain the question, I think, a little bit more. I'm happy to also provide some thoughts, but
There are a number of our first-gen students that don't take advantage of the Lead Scholars Program, and I worry about that. So I'm going to go off a little bit on this because I talked to a parent recently of a son who's first generation, and I asked her if he was a part of the Lead Scholars Program. And she told me no, because he was concerned about the, quote, stigma. And so I do think that we need to be really sensitive to that. That's why I love that we're having First Gen Week and that we celebrate being a first generation student. And I think that's why it's really important for me to publicly celebrate it and to say there is no stigma. For me, and I hope there won't be for others, and that I am a first generation student and I'm proud of it. So I do hope that students who are not part of the LEAD program that are first gen will want to be. But I do think our faculty and staff, of all the universities where I've worked, this faculty and staff is most centered on the needs of our students. So even if they weren't in LEAD, where I think they have a lot more opportunities, I hope that they would find faculty and staff on this campus that would be mentors to them and help guide them. I don't think they would have the experience I had if they came here and they weren't in LEAD, but they'd have a better experience if they were. I think your other question is complex because I do think we can stretch people too thin. But I think what we need to do is be sensitive to that, and if we ask someone to do something, really make sure they understand this is a voluntary opportunity for them. It's not something that they have to do. It's not something that they need to do. And that we understand there's many other demands on their time, and if this doesn't fit in their schedule, we encourage them not to do it. I'm not of the mind of paying people piece rate for everything they do. I don't think that creates a very good culture or community, but I am of the mind that we should be sensitive that people are only doing the things that they feel like fit in their lives, and there should be no guilt or pressure put on them, if that helps.
Okay, thank you. And we have time for one more question.
And I'll just add very briefly, so with the Lead Scholars Program, we bring in a cohort student at the very beginning of their college experience, but we also take students throughout their college experience, sometimes at different times. They realize that the LEAD community is something that they want to be a part of, so we always welcome students to come and participate. So I hope that that parent knows that and will encourage their child to participate. But thank you very much. I think it is a lot about, kind of challenging what the stigmas are, right? And then really, providing a sense of pride and visibility around the first gen identity. So thank you so much for that comment as well.
Thank you, Erin. So I think we have one more question.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Shanir Dennis. I was also in the Lee Scholars Program during my time here. I graduated last year, June 2022. I got my BA in English and Ethnic Studies. I also got my minor in Women's and Gender Studies. Before I ask my question, just wanted to uplift the question that was just asked, because I think that's always been something that I was always constantly thinking about during my time here as a first-gen student, making sure that I'm not stretching myself thin. The members of my community are not stretching their self thin, because oftentimes I did see that. And obviously that was before, President Sullivan was here. And so the only thing I can hope as an alumni now is that there are more active efforts being made to ensure that we continue really caring for our first-gen community here, particularly not just first-gen students, but first-gen students of color, black first-gen students, especially, But outside of that, I did have a question because I think this is a very pertinent time. I think one of the things that we always talk about first-gen as if it's it's not a superpower to be a first-gen student, and be someone who is the first pioneering person to pursue higher education. So my question really is kind of that. What is your superpower? What do you feel like first-gen, being a first-gen student has given you the skills that, you feel like you will be able to take away from your time here in Santa Clara and really continue into curating in your own professional life?
That's good. Great question.
First-gen superpower.
Yeah.
Resilience and grit.
Yeah.
Excellent. Jacob?
Resilience, grit. I would add on adaptability, the ability to just be yourself, be genuine, interact with a lot of different types of people from different types of background. That goes a long way in a lot of parts of our world.
Excellent. President Sullivan, what was your first-gen?
My grandmother. She was a great role model, and she taught me when I was a very young child, you can do anything you want to do, you just have to work hard and try hard.
Wow. Your superpower?
I would say courage and perseverance. I think if you can make it through college, you can make it through anything.
Wow. Excellent. Excellent. Love that superpower. All right. So we're going to have to remember that question for something else.
Yes.
Love it. So we are almost at time.
We are.
Be on time. So we have one more lightning round question for our panelists, and it is: what is your walk-on song? Does everybody know what a walk-on song is? Because sometimes I have to explain this to folks. Okay. All right. What's your walk-on song?
Yeah, I would definitely say Don't Stop Believin' by Journey. I think before any midterm, any test, anything I'm going through, play that song and I know I can make it through.
All right. Don't Stop Believing.
I Gotta Have Faith by George Michael.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. Although the only thing I can think of is his first shot.
My grandson told me to say it's going to be A-OK. Yeah. But he's a baseball fan. Yeah, but I had to say my first thought.
I love that. Jacob?
Switched up a little bit. I would say Purple Rain by Prince.
Oh, yeah. It's a pretty song.
1984.
Yeah.
That's right.
I was in 4th grade.
You guys probably don't know this artist, but it's Grammatique, and I would say it's Muy Tranquilo, because I need so much of that in my life.
Tranquilo.
Very tranquil. Mm-hmm. All right, excellent. Okay, well then, with that, we are at 2 minutes before 8. Thank you so much, everybody, for your participation. I do want to say one more time, QR code for contributions right here. If you want to join the Lead Advisory Board, please speak to Aaron. So please raise your hand if you're an advisory board member or a lead. Look at that. So talk to them, recruit others to be advisory board members as well. And really with that, let's give our panelists a round of applause as well. So, thank you.
And Giselle, a round of applause as well. Thank you, Giselle, for facilitating today. Last word. No, I just, again, want to thank all of you, want to thank our panelists, President Sullivan, Giselle. Thank you for all of your support and for participating tonight and spreading the word about our amazing first-gen community here. And thank you, everyone, for coming and all of your support. And have a wonderful evening. Thank you, everyone.
Nice to meet you in person. I've seen on Zoom.
Yes.
So nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.